And then I'm sure you guys have done this before. So you'll look at us, and we'll kind of pretend like this is not even.
It doesn't exist.
Yes. So can you first start off with your first and last names?
Judy Skinner.
And I'm Steve Skinner.
Awesome. And when did you all buy the Haunted Castle?
We bought it in December of 2018.
Oh wow! And what was your thought process into buying this? I know you said you're from Alabama.
Right. Well, we got interested in paranormal things in 2012, and it was kind of an accident. You know, we've always been skeptics and never had any experiences prior to that. And after something happened in 2012, we started going to a variety of places and still had interesting things occur. But I was always worried something might be staged, and so I wanted to find a place that could be my paranormal lab. So we looked online for places, and in 2018 we saw this place listed, and it was the first one that was affordable, and it's only about 9.5 hours from our home, so it's drivable. So that's what led us to Brumley.
Awesome. And so I know that you all found a mass grave, or the previous owners found a mass grave site. Now, can you go into detail about that?
You know, the previous gentleman who fixed this place up, Nick Sacco, found a mass grave and a pioneer grave in the backyard. And so when we bought the place, we just want to try to be as accurate historically as we possibly can. So we brought out ground penetrating radar in 2019, and the gentleman who did it said there's definitely something buried there. It's not sure if it's people, animals, but he definitely got the findings consistent with that. And in the Pioneer Graveyard, there was about 70% of the stones that were up had hits located on the stones facing the eastern sun. So in 2021, we brought another gentleman out here. We just kind of wanted to double check things. He got the same findings, and he also brought cadaver dogs out. We didn't get any hits where the mass grave was, but we got 5 hits where the Pioneer Graveyard is. We've also heard from some of the locals that there was a couple that lived here that raised dogs and had a very unfortunate episode with the dogs and buried a bunch at one time. So we don't know, possibly the mass grave may be a mass dog grave.
And since you've bought this house, can you tell us some of the ghost stories?
Yeah, we've been to a lot of places, and I've never been scared any place. This is the only place I ever had something that really, it scared me a lot. The first night we were here as owners, we had worked, we drove up here, got in about midnight, we're exhausted. We went up to the master bedroom to go to sleep. I fell asleep very quickly. Judy is wide awake. She's in a new town, in a home that may be haunted, and there's a closet door with a big hole in it that's facing you directly. It looks like it came from The Shining. So she's very much awake.
Yes.
So about 15 minutes after I fell asleep, on that closet door, there's 5 very loud bangs. It's like somebody's trying to break in. So I thought we had an intruder. I grabbed my 357, I go check the closet, nothing there, check everything upstairs, there's nothing. Get downstairs and realize our security system's still on, our doors are still dead bolted, and then I realized I left my poor sweet wife in the room with the banging. So I was just shaking. I mean, it really got to me. Finally, I fell back asleep a little after 3, and then at 4 I got woken up again with my pillow being pushed in about 4 inches and a man's voice by my ear going, so then I'm awake the rest of the night. A few other things happened after that, nothing major, but I came back 2 weeks later by myself. I told Judy, I said, the house won. It scared me. I mean, it's won, I'm nothing. I'm very competitive. I thought I got to come back up here by myself, stayed the weekend, and you would have thought you're at your grandmother's house. Not a peep, not a sound, not anything. We've had a variety of other things happen. I've seen 5 different apparitions here. I've seen a little boy 2 different times. I've seen 3 different women, one of them twice, one of them, the other 2 just singly. We hear our names called out, and I'll think it's Judy, but it's not, or she'll think it's me and it's not. There's a little whistler that we'll hear in one room, and we'll go in there, then it'll be in the next room, then we'll go in there and it'll be in another room. We've heard, I heard a lady wailing, just crying like a heartbreaking cry. I was in the front room, in the turret room, doing some of my dermatology work, not thinking about ghosts at all. So I thought Judy must have got a call from home where somebody passed away. I go to the back where I'm hearing the noise, and I get back there, there's nobody there. We've been touched. We've had, it sounds like all the furniture in the room up above us is moving. We'll go up there to look and there's not a thing out of place. And interestingly, the very first day that we heard the stuff moving upstairs was the first day I started digging in the backyard. So Judy said, that's a sign you need to stop. And I said, no, that's affirmation we need to keep on.
Wow. And now, I know that you mentioned that you've spoken to the Miller County
Yeah.
Historical Society. Have you had any word of like who these ghosts may be or their stories?
Well, it's really interesting because we don't know. I mean, we don't have any good idea. In this house or this property, there's been 3 different doctors that lived here. The first doctor lived outside the original home site. It was Dr. John Connor. He was both a physician and a county coroner, so he would have seen patients there, possibly prepared bodies or done autopsies there. Then inside this house, Dr. Walter Dixon lived here from 1928 to 1930. He also was a county coroner, and he passed away in the house. He passed away from a heart attack in the master bedroom back in 1930. Then Dr. Myron Jones lived in the house, and he was here 1935 to 1947. He too would have seen patients here. So there was a lot of physicians, a lot of patients seen. 4 of the owners died in this house. We don't know about the patients that were seen here, if any of those passed. So, and there were also a lot of social activities that went on out here. So there's been a lot of energy, mostly good things. But we just don't know. It's fascinating trying to figure it out.
That's awesome. And then as far as the Pioneer site, you mentioned that there was discoveries made there. Now, were those human remains or dog remains or?
Well, we found, at one site we found dog remains, and that's where actually one of the owners we found out had buried a pet, so we have a little wooden cross there. In one of the sites that we started digging, because we had cadaver dogs get 5 different hits there, we found 7 coffin nails there. And again, those could have been used for another type of carpentry, but it's interesting that both radar teams got hits, the dogs got a hit, and then those nails were there. And our hope would be if we could ever find a bone that's a human bone, we could do DNA testing, figure out who it is, give them a proper marker, and then we'll stop digging if we ever find that.
And so what's next to kind of look into those, those findings?
Yeah, I think next is just continued excavation, and we're trying to be very, very respectful with all that we do, but I think that's the next step. I don't know of any non-invasive means to approach it, and so hopefully we'll find something, and if we do, we post the findings, let people know, but that's our next plan.
Awesome. And can people come in for a tour? When are you all open?
Our schedule's really very erratic. In December, we'll post our schedule for 2024 because we're only open part-time, and we offer 1-hour tours. We offer 4-hour investigations. During October, we have some 2-hour candlelight tours. We turn all the lights off and have some candles in each room, and then we lead with an old torch or a railroad lantern. And then for groups that are really interested, they can do 24-hour investigations. They can have the house and the property to explore for 24 hours. And anytime we do anything, we're always here. If the group needs our help, we're available. If not, we stay out of their way.
That's awesome. And then, do you have any questions for me?
I was just curious about, like, when you were talking about being out in the backyard, you got hits. Could you kind of describe what that means and
Yeah.
like, what that process looks like?
Well, the hits were with the dogs. We had a gentleman who works for a lot of universities, brings cadaver dogs out here, and they sniff around on the property, and then they kind of basically it's like they're pointing, kind of like hunting dogs do when they get the scent of human remains or human decay. And one thing he pointed out too was that depending on when they were buried and what they were buried in, because there was a time they were buried in nothing, a time they were buried in linen, in pine boxes. But if they decayed, especially if they completely decayed, somebody could have been buried in one spot, but the dogs may get a scent down below that as things have kind of drifted that way. So the hits were the dog hits.
Awesome. And then renovations. Sorry,
Yes.
I think we asked that off camera. But you all did do renovations to the original property.
We have. We had to put a new roof on the house. We had to do some work on some of the additions. There's an apartment on one side and one upstairs that we had to replace. We had hardy board on there. We've had to do a lot of rewiring, a lot of plumbing. And then we've brought in some new things, and Judy's rearranged and decorated. She has a real gift for that. She's really made the place look nice.
Awesome. And so, you know, you mentioned that, did you all find anything from the original homeowners from the 1800s when you bought the place?
Well, historically, we found a lot. We found newspaper articles about them, and then metal detecting, I found things as well. I found some Indian head pennies, padlocks, some latches and things where the old homestead was. I found a pocket watch that belonged to a man named Charles Short, who was here in the early 1920s. Found a fob that went with that. We found medicine bottles that Dr. Jones and Dr. Dixon both would have used, a stethoscope cover that Dr. Dixon would have used. So most of the things we found that would have belonged to owners have been from metal detecting outside.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. And is there anything that you want to add or want the public to know that maybe I didn't ask?
Well, you know, we're a little unusual in being owners. You know, we both born and raised conservative Christians, never had any experiences. I'm a physician, Judy's an office manager and a surgical assistant. And we got into all this accidentally. We were trying to prove to our daughter ghosts weren't real. And, you know, once I had my own experience, it blew my mind. So, you know, everything here we try to be as accurate as we can. The history and any paranormal stories we tell, you know, they truly happen. We may misperceive something, but we won't make anything up. And it's been an amazing journey these last 5 years. We've got to meet some fascinating people who come here. And it's interesting to pick people's brains and hear their experiences. And I've learned that after having my own, that almost everybody has a story, but they're usually afraid to tell it. A lot of my friends, when I shared things with them, I said, I think I've lost my mind. Here's what happened. They said, well, now that you've told me, let me share this with you. And so I think it's fascinating, and I think it's helpful to reassure people that they're not crazy when these things happen. And I think getting the conversation going is really a helpful thing.
Awesome.
Sorry, I also have a question. Just what do you say to people that are skeptics or people that just absolutely do not agree with, you know?
Yeah, I say I was you. I used to be you, and it wouldn't have mattered if Judy had told me she saw a ghost. I would have thought, you believe it, but you misperceived it. Your eyes were playing tricks on you. Something was off. So we welcome skeptics, and it's wonderful to have them, because if something happens, which we've had occur, that they can't explain, the reaction is just wonderful. So, yeah, we welcome skeptics. I never try to convince anybody, because I know nobody could have convinced me. And, you know, my purpose is just to learn what I can. And if others can learn from that too, that's great. And if not, you know, I'm fine with that as well.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
That was great. So now I think if we can do a tour, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
And then I can set this up somewhere. Maybe we'll get some activity.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Yeah.
Where would be the best place? Where would be the last place we would end the tour as far as the house goes?
The last place upstairs in the doll room, the master bedroom's the best place to set up. That's where the most interesting things happen. So,
Yeah, could we
yeah,
go there?
absolutely. And usually we have all the lights off. I